everyone. My name is Christine Gilfillan, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Safe Berks. Welcome to our People Chronicles program called The Place You Start. And I'm very excited to have with me today Vicki Ebner, who is the current president of our board of directors. And Vicki is also a staff attorney at East Penn Manufacturing. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the program today.
You're very welcome.
We really appreciate it. And usually the first thing that I ask people who come on the program is, how did you first get involved with Safe Berks, which was probably at that time Berks Women In Crisis, but
Yes.
How did you first get involved with the agency?
Well, when I held another job at a local utility, I had a visit from two very persuasive people, Mary Kay Bernowski and Carolyn Holleran. And they came to the place where I worked to ask if the company I worked for could support the capital campaign that at that time Berks Women In Crisis entered into to build the new building that we have at 2nd and Chestnut. And the company I worked for didn't have a lot of resources for those kinds of campaigns, but we worked together and found some. We used an innovative approach, found a way for the company to support the capital campaign, and that started a really solid relationship between Mary Kay and I and Carolyn, and eventually, maybe a year after that, maybe a little longer, Mary Kay asked me if I would be interested in joining the board.
That's wonderful. So what stands out for you as a member of the board now for, approximately 6 years?
About that, yes.
What do you think has been the most impactful thing about being a member of the board, or what has stood out for you the most about getting more involved with the agency?
Well, I think the most impactful thing was our last year as we went into considering and then deciding to have a name change. And it was impactful because we made the decision that the community we weren't telling our best story, that Berks Women In Crisis wasn't telling its current story. And that was a story of the breadth of the services that we can provide. The story that we thought was being told was the story of women in crisis, because our name suggested that that was the story. And we thought it was a good time to open that up a bit and make sure that we could help all of the parts of the community that were able to help by letting more people know what we could do. I also think it was impactful because it was a whole year of activity which really had a number of places for the board to engage. Sometimes when you're on a nonprofit board, there are particular areas where you need to engage, maybe development, maybe governance. In this last year that we've just had, we had the breadth of experience of engaging because every committee and every person on the board had something they could do to support the initiative.
That's right, and that makes me think about the fact that over the course of that year, which we called the Healthy Village Project, we heard a lot of stories. So stories is a theme.
It is.
That runs through all of it. Was there any one part of it or any story that you heard last year that had a great impact for you?
I think for me, the story that I wasn't hearing, even as a board member, which sometimes could be disappointing personally when you think you aren't getting the full understanding, was the story about the way we get into the school district and we start to support teenagers and maybe even preteens as they start to think about their relationships with each other. And the more I learned about that over the last year, the more it caused me to realize how very important it is for us to get to folks early, and that we provide services, very, very important, essential services to the women, children, and even sometimes men who come to us. But if we could get that to stop happening, we would need less of those services. So that intervention and that education piece was probably the light bulb that went off in my head over the last year.
Wow, that's really great. And I think that happened in the community as well. More people became aware of those efforts.
I certainly hope so. I think there's a lot to do. I think there's still a lot to do, and I think it's primarily because we all think we know what's out there, but until you need it or until you see someone who needs it, it's just not always in the forefront. And we're trying to get it to the forefront where it's needed as much as possible.
Right. So what do you think then what's next, do you think, for the board and for your role with the agency? What keeps you excited about being involved?
Well, there's always something to be done. So one of the things we have to think about, whether it makes us excited or not, is we have to think about our building. We have to think about the maintenance of our building, keeping our building fresh, welcoming. I think making sure our building welcomes those who need us, who really need that as well. So that excites me because it's a project we know we need to work on. I'm excited because every year we start with new board members. We bring new board members in, which means we bring essentially their families and their workplaces and their neighbors, because once you start on a board, you bring those other folks with you. And that's always exciting to get new and fresh ideas and people thinking about things. I'm excited because I think there's more we can do with development. I think as any nonprofit, we have to think about our expenses. And we've come to a point where we feel pretty comfortable that stepping out and getting someone who can do more on the development side with us to bring, to free up people like you, Mary Kay, to do the work that you need to do and maybe have someone help with development. I think that's a very exciting thing for us as well.
Well, I just want to say how fortunate we are to have you as the president of our board. It just works really well, and as you talk about it, I get excited thinking about all the things that are going to happen coming up too. So I want to thank you for agreeing to come on the program.
You're
and
very
for
welcome.
letting the public know a little bit more about what it means to be a board member, and for sharing your experiences. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the work that you do.
Well, thank you, Christine. I appreciate the work you do as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. This is The Place You Start. Visit us at safeberks.org or by calling 610-373-1206.